Yo, so as you guys know, on my channel, I like to we discuss psychedelics and their revolutionary potential to treat an assortment of mental health conditions. I do other videos that are more in depth on, the war on drugs and why psychedelics are illegal in the first place. But just a real quick, brief history before I jump into this video series that I'm about to do now. Psychedelics were considered wonder drugs to treat mental health conditions in the 50s and 60s. Cannabis as well, as you'll see in a couple of the clips I'm about to play. 50s and 60s, and the revolution, overtook the country. People started overdoing it. The drugs left, the scientific laboratory and scientific studies and made their way into the streets. And then 1970s, the war on drugs was declared by the Nixon administration. The DEA was created. What was it? I don't want to butcher the name of the what was it? The Controlled Substance Act of 1970 or 1971 was imposed. From that time, a lot of people in my generation, older generations, what we were taught is that drugs were bad, especially psychedelic drugs. You'll jump off of a roof, you're going to lose your mind, you're going to go crazy. A lot of this is a result of, propaganda and like the things that we were taught to believe that, drugs would do to our minds. So in this video, I just want to kind of go over some of the propaganda because I actually find it pretty funny, especially where we are today in society with cannabis being legal almost in most of the states. In our country, psychedelic drugs are making their way through the FDA clinical trial process. These commercials look absolutely insane. So what I'm going to do in this video is I kind of just want to watch these videos with you guys. Like, they're just like a bunch of old school commercials that like we grew up on, and like they're nuts, like in the context of today's society. So let's check a few of these out. So this first video right here, this is from 1951. This is on weed. This is nuts. This is grass, as they used to call it back in the day. Let's check this out. This is probably absolutely insane.
Youth is a time for fun, of pranks and jokes, of ice cream cones and chocolate sodas. Youth is a time for getting a job, for finding one's place in the world.
This is what niggas mean when they say make America
great again. In these troubled days, the very thoughtlessness of youth has led to a living nightmare. Addiction to drugs.
Addiction to drugs.
What's that? H? H? What's H? That's a lot. It's heroin.
Oh, shit.
Will it make me sick like the reefers did?
Marty's story is like many of the others. It started with marijuana cigarettes.
Come on, it's my turn.
The gateway drug. So my man's doing heroin, and they're trying to imply that weed was the gateway drug that caused him to to do H, as he calls it. This is nuts.
Hey, Duke, where'd you get him? I know a guy. $3 for $1.
Let me try.
He was determined to be one of the gang if it killed him. And it almost did. Several weeks later, after smoking reefers,
Jeff Sessions in the crew.
Marty's befogged brain hit on a clever way to open pop bottles. Later, Stan went to the hospital for swallowing broken glass.
Nah.
Marty badly cut the inside of his
Nah.
mouth, so he didn't even know it at the time.
Yo, they just said weed makes you eat glass. That's crazy. That's absolutely insane. Like, weed makes you eat glass.
For long, Marty was hooked, physically dependent on heroin. Nothing mattered but the ever-present craving for the drugs. He had given up interest in everything else.
So that video, that was absolutely nuts. That just adds to the whole weed is a gateway drug narrative. Like, I guess like the commercials trying to say that like if you smoke marijuana, you're going to do heroin after it. So I think that's largely been proven not true at all. So just before we close this reaction video, I just want to just clear up that marijuana gateway drug myth. This is from healthline.com. Cannabis is a gateway drug is a myth. The verdict is false. You guys, check this out. Cannabis is often called a gateway drug, meaning that using it will probably lead to using other substances like cocaine or heroin. H, as we saw it called in the commercial. The phrase gateway drug was popularized in the 1980s. The whole idea is based on the observation that people who use recreational substances often start by using cannabis. Some suggest that cannabis affects the neural pathways in the brain that cause people to develop a quote unquote taste for the drugs. There's little evidence, shocker, to back up these claims, though. While many people do use cannabis before using other substances, that alone isn't proof that cannabis use caused them to do other drugs. One idea is that cannabis, like alcohol and nicotine, is generally easier to access and afford than other substances. So if someone is going to do them, they'll probably start with weed. One study from 2012 mentions that in Japan, where cannabis isn't as accessible as it is in the United States, 83.2% of users of recreational substances did not use cannabis first. It is also important to remember that there are many other factors that can lead to someone forming a substance use disorder, including personal, social, genetic, and environmental factors. Go figure. So, 1950s grass propaganda commercial. Anyway, though, guys, this is like my first video, like just breaking down the propaganda from like drug commercials in the past. Again, I track psychedelics and, I largely support decriminalization efforts all across the country for the tremendous therapeutic potentials that these compounds are showing early in early trials and clinical research. So anyway, guys, that concludes this video. Just wrapping up, just going over different commercials and propaganda from the war on drugs in the past. I largely support decriminalization efforts all across the country, and the tremendous and promising potential that psychedelic drugs in particular are showing to treat mental health conditions in early clinical trials and early clinical research. We just broke down that grass commercial from the 50s, which was insane. Weed is a gateway drug, myth completely busted. Anyway, Artist Project, breaking down drug propaganda. First video. Peace.